Now, the Federal Parliament this week passed new hate speech laws. Some of it, I think, is okay. They've introduced minimum sentences for terrorism or funding terrorism or displaying terrorist symbols. Fair enough. But it seems like the rise of anti-Semitism, which is absolutely a problem, has been used as a cloak to bring in a bunch of other rules that actually suppress freedom of speech. They were dealing with laws around inciting violence against certain groups. Now, those protected groups were previously race, religion, nationality, national or ethnic origin, or political opinion. Well, to that, they've now added sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, intersex status, and disability. Now, the law used to say it was an offence if a first person, that means just a person, intentionally urges another person or a group to use force or violence against a person or the targeted group, and B, the first person does so intending that force or violence will occur. So it was very clear, if you mean to cause violence to another person on the basis of something like race or religion, you have committed an offence. Fair enough. But now it says you've committed an offence if A, the first person advocates the use of force or violence against a group, the targeted group, and B, the first person does so reckless as to whether force or violence will occur. So now you can fall foul of the law not because you meant violence to be perpetrated, but because you were reckless in considering whether someone else may extrapolate your comments out to then commit violence or force for that matter. And James Morrow, Evelyn, used the example this morning on Outsiders that if you advocated, for instance, that a certain group of illegal immigrants should be removed from the country by force, you could potentially be in breach of this law. I used the example the other night on the Late Debate. Clementine Ford, feminist writer, used to say all the time, kill all men, which we all sort of understand is an ironic term. But she could now be falling foul of the law because some idiot read that and actually went and killed a bloke. And they said, well, you were reckless as to whether someone would take that seriously. Is that really where we're going?
It is. We've gone there. So, unfortunately, we have. And, you know, I think we saw this coming a long time ago. I think that the hate, policing speech and the hate speech has been on the cusp for a long time. And I think we were all hoping and praying that it wouldn't actually come through, but like you said, they kind of this week rammed it through under, like you said, the Trojan horse of anti-Semitism. It is 100% what they've used to push this legislation in. And I think it was Craig Kelly who said, you can go to prison for 7 years now for saying we have to beat Labor. Theoretically.
No, but if anyone brings that case, but seriously.
They will. This is the problem with this sort of precedent. We have to kick them out. Like where does it end? Who gets to define these arbitrary laws? Who defines what hate speech is? Who defines what hate symbols are? I would actually push back a little bit on what you said, Caleb, in that some of the legislation you think was good in terms of displaying terrorist symbols. Because if you look up in the USA, the ADL's list of what they deem as terrorism symbols or hate symbols, one of them is White Lives Matter. The other one is Thor's hammer. A third one is Celtic crosses. Being Celt myself, I find it's outrageous to me that there is somebody in some form of authority somewhere across the world who deems a Celtic cross as a form of hate symbol. And so you've got to always look at what precedes and hopefully heed warning and example. And if you look across the world, what's happening, we would be naive and stupid to think that it isn't possible happening here. I mean, who defines this? Who is the overhead sort of, defining this? Because look at Israel Folau. He lost his career because of something that he quoted from the Bible, from Jesus, from the Apostle Paul, direct scripture from the Christian faith. I'm a Christian. So here I am thinking, okay, am I reckless in quoting Corinthians? Am I reckless in talking about the letters that Paul wrote to the new church when he was giving them instructions on what should be happening? Where does this end? Because if he could lose a career over this and it was deemed hate speech, what does this criminally mean for Christians like myself and other people? I think that we pride ourselves in our nation, in Australia, as being a democracy, which means the people are in power, the people speak. And if people want to put hate speech laws in and cap speeching, you're basically kneecapping democracy, because if people are afraid to speak out loud and they think they're going to end up in prison, we're not going to be able to discuss ideas. We can't say, you know what, immigration is a bad idea because that could be racist. We're not allowed to say that. I think it's really bad women are in, trans women are in, biological women's sports because then we're, some kind of phobe. Like, where does it end? And I think it's very dangerous. Fear is enough to curb democracy, and if everyday Australians are fearful that they can't speak freely and discuss these hard ideas, then they're not going to have a proper democracy here, and we're literally ruled by whoever deems whatever is hate in a court of law.
Kel, I saw you shaking your head there.
Yeah, a lot of the things that Evelyn's talking about are not there. I sat down and I read the text of the actual Act of Parliament, and it's about a threatening force or violence. And are you recklessly threatening force or violence, or are you advocating the use of force or violence?
But there was a guy just recently who got arrested by police for wearing an eagle on his belt. They said it was a symbol of some kind of terrorist group or whatnot. He was part of the National Socialist Party, and he said, "What is it?"
That's a bit of a clue.
No, but seriously, like, we live in, like, what are we? Are we some?
But the National Socialist Party.
I'll just let Kel finish. I'll let Kel finish first.
There is a case that Clementine Ford is really being reckless, because if there's someone who is unbalanced and she keeps saying kill all men, then you've got to say to her, listen, words have power. Free speech is never, ever, ever totally free. There are always limitations.
True.
Free speech never means you're free to shout fire in a crowded theatre. You can't call it. Free speech is covered by defamation and by plagiarism. And so there are always going to be restrictions. Should you be allowed to be as reckless and careless with language as you like? Now, in the context of the bill, a whole lot of the things that Evelyn's worried about, I understand, and they make sense, but they're not covered by this bill.
But it doesn't actually define it, though.
Shouldn't worry about stuff that's happening in America.
That's the first mistake, Kel.
That other people are doing.
No, it's the first
just
mistake.
about being reckless in urging people in some way to force or physical violence.